Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar in partnership with Argano. I'm Chloe, I'm the producer at CX Network, and I'm joined here today by Greg Moser of Argano, along with John Rastier, Jared Shears, and Sarah Crouchley. We've got a great program in store for you guys today, so I'm not going to take up too much time with my intro. But the first thing that I want to let everyone know is that we do have a Q&A box, which you should all be able to see towards the bottom of your screen. So as the webinar is going on, if you have any questions for speakers, please do go ahead and put those in the Q&A box. Please remember, if it's for a specific speaker, make sure that you include their name so that we know who to direct the question to. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand. So feel free to check your inbox after we've concluded, and you'll be able to share that with your colleagues or revisit any of today's talking points. But for now, I'm going to hand straight over to Greg Moser. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Chloe. Thanks everyone for joining. We're really excited about today's content, and sure everyone's going to walk away with bits and tips and tricks that they can use to implement around their AI strategy. Have to say, very excited about the keynote speakers that we have today. Sarah, is a innovator in this particular space. I've had the pleasure of working with Sarah both in Microsoft and at other organizations as well. Do highly recommend that you connect with Sarah online via LinkedIn. Produces a lot of great content, significant thought leader in the space and friends. So Sarah, welcome, excited to have you on board for the event. Also ecstatic to have Jared with Dynata on the phone. Dynata is the leading data provider out there. They provide global platforms and data with access to information to make informed business decisions around marketing strategies and things like that. And it's just perfect to have a company like Dynata on the call today who really lives and breathes within the data realm, right? And then you empower that with AI, the business value, the just the trend, the digital disruption that they're providing to their customer, their prospect space is first class. So really excited to have Jared talk about how they're taking their initiative around AI data, customer experience to the next level. So definitely sharpen your pencils, get out your notepads, and get ready to kind of learn from the best. So excited to have Dynata and Jared on the call as well. And then last but certainly not least, Mr. John Rossi, who leads our global director of innovation. He really focuses on working with the Microsoft product team in innovating around these technologies, in addition to developing and delivering assets and accelerators that we produce around the AI framework as well. So John's going to speak to all things best practices. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. Just a little bit about your host. Argano is a digital transformation partner. We really focus on balance, people, process, and automation, quality in the middle, and really look at helping companies integrate and deploy these types of programs. They add significant business value, drive down OpEx, and increase the CX experience across the board. Global company, locations and multiple delivery centers. And just a little bit about us, 1,400 clients, 1,700 people, and a lot of certifications across multiple platforms. So with that said, today's agenda, we're really going to kind of focus on a couple areas, from the different presenters. You look at the evolution of AI. I mean, this is one of the fastest growing, times that I've had in my career over the last 30 years. When you look at the hype cycle for artificial intelligence through Gartner, you look at the maturity curves for certain things like data-driven AI, 2 to 5 years, generative AI, 5 to 10 years, and then general artificial intelligence, 5+ years. But I can tell you this, we are moving at the pace of speed of light. Just the amount of innovation that's coming out is unheard of. And I think those that are able to apply these technologies will truly differentiate yourselves from the pack, truly separate yourselves from the competition. And these types of strategies are not things that you have to take lightly. They're things that you have to do to stay competitive. So we're going to talk about the evolution of AI. We're going to talk about the ecosystem that Microsoft is driving. We're also going to explore how Dynata has delivered these technologies to really add value to their customers, their employees, and their shareholders. And then John's going to close it and talk about best practices. And then we're going to have about 10 minutes for Q&A. So again, get ready. This is going to be a great topic and very excited about what the speakers have to say. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah. Sarah, go get them. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Greg. Let's go ahead and we're going to start to switch over to my screen in just a moment. Thank you so much. And you should be able to see my screen. And let's go ahead and we can get started. So I want to talk about Copilot Studio today. And Greg, what was actually really amazing from what you just said was this, I loved it. You said moving at the speed of light, right? The pace of change is super fast. And, you know, it could be the case that some organizations are kind of like, you know, what to do, where, like what technology should I use? Like, how can I get started? And so I'm super privileged to be here and thank you for allowing me to be here for the webinar to really be able to talk about a possible route that you can use to get started, which is Microsoft Copilot Studio. So what I really wanted to kind of start with is really kind of, you know, what is it, right? It's a SaaS-based product, it's a SaaS-based platform, and really organizations can have two different kind of approaches. The first one is to be able to leverage the first-party Copilots that Microsoft are offering, and they're offering quite a few, right? Like we've got first-party Copilot experiences in Dynamics 365, we've got first-party experiences in the Power Platform, and so, and just to name a few, right? There are many more. And so an organization can easily say like, okay, yes, that Copilot fits my needs, right? To be able to have and use an interface that uses natural language just to be able to ask it a question as opposed to have to kind of learn, train on it, know exactly where to click. To be able to have this kind of Copilot experience, to be able to have this kind of experience where you can simply ask for what you need and actually have multi-turn conversations on it or with it, right? And so that's one approach. The second approach is to be able to say, well, okay, these Copilot experiences that Microsoft are making, they don't quite fit my needs, right? I want to be able to actually create my own Copilot. How do you do that? Well, in both cases, you can actually, together with using first-party Copilots, actually leverage Microsoft Copilot Studio. So in the first scenario, say, for example, you're using Copilot for Microsoft 365, you can actually go ahead and use Copilot Studio that's actually built into the cost of Copilot for Microsoft 365 within that licensing, within the business licensing. And you can actually go ahead and use it to actually extend. This is one of the things that many organizations actually say, well, we want to embed our processes in there. We want to be able to specifically point to a specific set of data. We want to be able to create and craft this specific experience. And this is where you've still got Copilot for Microsoft 365, but you can actually go ahead and attach business logic to it using Copilot Studio. And then in the second scenario of building an actual custom Copilot, one of the main reasons for that is that an organization wants to publish it anywhere they want, rather than kind of be anchored to the first party experience that they might want to use over in scenario one. One of the really large kind of value of creating a custom Copilot is you can then publish it wherever you want, together with some of the similar use cases of, you know, being able to connect to business processes, to be able to point at specific data and so on, right? So when you build your own Copilot, you can really go and publish that in a custom mobile app, for example. You can publish it on your website. So if you think about those two kind of like routes, what Microsoft Copilot Studio does is it's a low-code authoring platform. It has pro-code capabilities as well. But one of the reasons that we really try to talk about low code first is because it's so accessible to everyone. It's the fact that you can actually go ahead and use your domain specific knowledge bring that in and not be kind of hampered by a complex, graphical user interface. You don't have to, kind of code things. You don't have to do those such things. You can actually use like our authoring canvas. You can build these experiences, and then you can actually serve your customers or your internal users better. A few other things about Microsoft Copilot Studio, it's connected to many other Microsoft services. So we actually are now kind of, I don't want to spoil it because I want to talk about our built-in generative AI features, but and you're going to see this with many Microsoft products, is the fact that it's not kind of like, one product with Microsoft. It's very interconnected with other products. We have integrations with Azure Cognitive Services. We have integrations, as you'll soon see, with Azure AI Studio, and Azure OpenAI Services. And so the idea of like kind of like being isolated to just kind of like one product is really a kind of thing of the past. It's more about where do you start? And this is why Copilot Studio is a fantastic place to start. Now, you might be like, this is great, Sarah. Look at kind of like, how does this work? How do I do this? You're telling me all of this amazing things of how I can transform my organization, how I can create this Copilot experience or embed this Copilot experience, whether it's internal or whether it's for my customers. But how do I do that? Well, what's in the box? Within the Copilot Studio product itself, we kind of refer to the areas as workspaces. So we have our analytics and insights workspace, which is where you can get detail of the actual kind of conversations, what kind of things your customers are using or asking rather, where you can chat, like actually publish via the channels where you can, like I said, select things like, go grab your web snippet for your website, publish it to WhatsApp or any kind of, there's lots of different channels, there's Facebook, and there's lots of different things that we support. And then we've also then got plugins. So this is where you can actually kind of create and anchor kind of topics, different types of plugins within Copilot Studio. That's particularly important because as you'll kind of soon see with the Automation Studio, this is kind of where it's not just about having a conversation with your users or your customers, it's how can you actually be of service to them? And this is where plugins are really powerful. And then finally, generative AI. Again, I don't want to spoil it for you. I want to go into that in a bit more depth, but we actually have a dedicated workspace for really connecting your data within the platform and then using that to be able to have conversations, using that data as a grounded data source. I mentioned Automation Studio. So this is Power Automate. So Power Automate, again, is on the low-code side of our solutions at Microsoft. And it means that you can go ahead and actually create business automation. Again, you don't have to code. You can go ahead and really integrate this directly within Copilot Studio so that you can go ahead and like actually have a conversation and go make a support ticket as well, right? Like we actually have things like built-in fallback capabilities within our platform. And it means that you can integrate directly within Dataverse or wherever you have your CRM records stored or really kind of any kind of database. You can go ahead and call an API and you can create new records. And that's super powerful, right? Because it means that if you was to take a look at the value for your users and for your customers, it means they don't have to go make a support ticket. So this is where the Automation Studio is very powerful. And then we're actually directly integrated into the Power Platform Admin Center. That means you can go configure DLP policies. You can go ahead and actually perform administrative functions that really help your organization adopt Copilot Studio. So I've been talking about this for a while in relation to the generative AI. So let's kind of dig in here a little bit. One of the biggest value points and what we've been working on with Copilot Studio is to be able to have essentially an out-of-the-box experience with generative AI. How can you leverage generative AI, but you don't want to have to set up, at least initially, like custom or complex infrastructure. You don't want to have to go wire up your own API requests. This is where we actually have built-in generative AI features directly within our platform, and we are connected ourselves to Azure OpenAI. So like I said, we've already done that for you. So we want to be able to provide this platform so you can really ramp up super quickly, leverage this and these capabilities so that you can better serve your users or your customers. So if I kind of go from maybe, actually, I'm not going to go in any particular order, but I do want to start with our own Copilot. So we believe in this so much. We actually have our own Copilot within Copilot Studio. So this is where you can actually use natural language to build out some of the functionality that you may need. Then we've also got generative answers. This is the ability to be able to bring your data, and then we've actually got the search and summarize feature, and then it's grounded. When somebody asks a question to say, you know, what products do you sell? It will actually utilize the data that you've brought and then be able to formulate a response. And it's using Azure OpenAI, as well as we do our own checks and balances around that as well. So like I said, it's a first-party managed feature. And we support a number of different data sources today. Things like Dataverse, we are kind of natively on Dataverse anyway by default. And then you can also bring even third-party data as well. Things like PDF documents you can upload, OneDrive, SharePoint. We support quite a number of data sources. So this is fantastic to be able to serve information to your users, whether those are customers or internal users, and answer questions, because that's one of the common reasons why people use conversational experiences. They just need to know some quick information. And then whether that's to be able to follow up, the key thing here is to be able to have multi-turn conversations. And so what that means is the ability to be able to ask a question and then ask a follow-up question without giving the full context. So you don't have to keep repeating yourself all the time. That's really important. Now, that's awesome, but what about doing stuff, right? So like that's kind of one piece of the puzzle, to be able to kind of provide and serve information. But this is what we mean when, okay, what about acting? What about doing things? What about calling things like APIs? And this is where generative actions is really kind of part two, right? Or the other piece of the puzzle. We're actually allowing the capability for you to be able to ask a question and actually to use an actual LLM to actually orchestrate the conversation, to serve up the actual API or the plugin that's needed, and actually go ahead and call other plugins as well, to be able to chain those together. This is really that next step. And so, like I said, this is a SaaS-based platform. You don't need to set up additional infrastructure to use these features. Now, what happens when you create a custom Copilot, for example? You utilize a feature such as generative answers, and then what happens is you kind of create this cycle. You create a kind of life cycle that continues on. So you can connect, say, to a website. You can create maybe some specific topics using that authoring canvas. Now, a really key thing there is that you might be saying, well, Sarah, if generative AI does everything, why would I want to do that? Well, there's quite a few reasons why you may want to do that. One of the main ones being that you might want to actually specifically craft a response that is the same every time, right? You might want to be able to actually guide a user through a specific flow. And that's where our authoring canvas will be able to serve your needs. So the idea is that you shouldn't be doing that too much. You don't want to have to rely on that too much. And it's a combination of the scale that comes with generative AI together with these topics that you can go ahead and build in the canvas. Connect it to your APIs, and then you can choose where you publish. And once you've done that, a really key thing when we talk about kind of conversational AI, to be able to actually use these Copilot experiences, monitoring is key. To be able to actually say, okay, our customers are using this like this over here, but they're not using this, right? And you can actually try to identify needs, and then you can actually go through the cycle again. This is another representation of that, right? So it's not just I'm going to develop a Copilot and we're good. Because what's really important is the fact that you actually have like your customers and your internal users, that their needs are always changing. And to be able to actually manage those changing needs, you need to be able to take a look at those analytics and understand how are they using your Copilot or your chatbot. And then you can then actually serve their needs even more, and you can continue to whether meet unmet needs, essentially kind of like serve more of their needs, or as their needs change, right? And they can change for many different reasons. And so this is where you create this life cycle within your organization, and you can actually really provide a much more differentiated and a higher level of service experience to employees and to your customers. So I've got lots of resources for you today. I'll try and put them into chat as well. I'll put some of the kind of key ones in the chat. But like I said, I'll be super open to questions. And hopefully that kind of gave you a really good introduction to Copilot Studio. But for now, I'm going to pass over to Jared, and who's going to kind of talk about the technology and implementing this type of technology. Over to you, Jared.
Very good. Thank you, Sarah. Going to shift to sharing my screen in just a moment. I'm hoping that my screen is showing now. So when Greg approached me about being a part of the webinar, he asked me to focus on the journey that Dynata had been on to transform our business to really create space for generative AI to actually impact the way we do business. And what I want to talk today about is a lot about that journey, because we were really focused not on implementing generative AI for AI's sake, but instead to really drive practical business applications from the implementation of AI. And in order to do that, we needed to do it on more than just an individual user, because if I save 3 minutes out of my day every time I do a task, that's great. But if I can save 3 minutes every time everybody on my team does something in the same way, using the same resources, then suddenly I create real leverage for my business to unlock efficiencies or open up new markets. So it's really about the journey. So my function is to manage digital transformation. And I get the question a lot, like, where do you start? And I think companies find themselves in these situations where they have built their organization, their application stack, their processes, their staff, their office locations, one piece at a time. Our organization was actually built through a lot of acquisitions. And so we brought together all of these different systems, and our business, it runs, right? Like, it runs effectively. It can go down the road. It's going to do everything. It was built one piece at a time, much like the Johnny Cash car that I'm showing on screen here. But the challenge becomes that you can't scale because you start getting burdened by the debt of all of these different components technically, and it makes it hard to scale quickly. It makes it hard to pivot quickly. It reduces your ability to be flexible, etc. So organizations start here. Like, you've got something that works, but you want something better, and you're looking to transition. So where do you go? Often people think about starting the transformation from the users. Like, what do the users need? What do they want? What is the market looking for? The reality is, well, you might be able to get some good ideation and conceptualization, brainstorming from the users about what they want. The start of this journey really starts with convincing the C-suite that this project has merit or benefit, and them then convincing the investors, owners, board, etc., that that program not only has merit, but it's worth investing in, because without funding or without focus, you don't get to go down a path that's this long. And those really come in two forms, right? As we engage in this transformation, is it going to unlock new commercialization events, or is it going to unlock operational efficiencies within the business? And then when you look at those two things as your lens, even as you have all of the other stakeholders in the business at play, right? You've got the user groups, you've got the engineering teams, you've got business unit leaders, you've got the executive teams, you've got the board. These are all stakeholders who are then committed to this. As you think about the initial thesis of transformation, is this a market opportunity, or is this operational efficiency? Then you have to think through the process, because it's a long road. It'll take a great deal of time, and it's expensive. What features need to exist in order to enact the change that we need to do in order to realize the benefit? And what I mean is, if you're going after a new market, like, who are the customers? What's the size? What are the features that are necessary to address that market? How do you get the rollout driven out? And then when do you actually realize the benefit from the funding that you're asking for up front? And these plans have to be made, and kind of the same for efficiencies. Like, if you think about that, if it's a labor savings play, who are the teams impacted? What are the feature sets that have to be there in order for those teams to be impacted? And then how do you drive that action? Because if you're asking for resources and focus from the organization, you've got to make sure you can demonstrate when and where that benefit is going to play out. And in part with that, this becomes a part of defining your North Star. And we use the term North Star in transformation to represent this place that you're going to, because given the length of the road, inevitably something is going to distract the business, or you're going to have teams who are operating in different time zones or different regions or different silos. And you need everybody to be able to stand up when that tangent finishes, look up, reorient towards the North Star, and continue to march towards it. It's a way to make sure that everybody is focused on it, even as they have individual distractions throughout their time. Another big part of transformation is looking around at the well-intentioned Wild West. And what I mean by this is you've got lots of individual users across your businesses who are doing things that make their lives better one at a time in an ad hoc way. So a few people get together, they come up with a good idea, they make a process change, they build an Excel tool, they do things that change the business slightly in their small microcosm. And the challenge you end up with is that you end up with hundreds of these or thousands of these like improvements. And some of these improvements are contradictory. Some of these improvements are completely opposite of the direction you'd like to move the business. They can't scale, they're difficult to replicate, et cetera. So there really is this phase where you've got to go through and work with the teams to simplify and centralize the processes and the types of tools that these users need in order to operationalize their days, and get to a place where you're in a pre-automation state. And what I mean by pre-automation is that you've got one process or one process with branches that can then be turned into automation. If you can't get to a cleanly defined process, you can't start overlaying automation to make that better and easier for your users. Then as you go through that process, what you realize is that you've got these backlogs for every one of the applications that you're supporting, every one of the processes you're supporting, all of these good ideas that have been posited along the way that just end up cluttering backlogs. I'm sure we've all seen them, where you've got thousands and thousands of feature requests that, again, are often contradictory, don't really move it forward. So I use the magic wand analogy with our users regularly to say, okay, if we were to deliver everything on this list today, would we have generate more revenue? Would we have realized some sort of labor savings or made your lives materially better? And the answer is always a resounding no. Like often backlogs end up being a chronology of all of the abandoned turf wars that have existed between tribal factions within an organization. Like somebody wanted this, but they didn't quite have the political power to make it a focus for the business to dedicate resources to it. So it really does become like just this space where you don't need to focus there. You need to look to the future, like orient to your North Star and move forward. Backlogs are irrelevant. And then as you think about like implementing the automation and transformation activities that you're engaged in, there's this concept of data gravity or application gravity, where as you start bringing your applications together into the same space or the same data sphere, you start to create this data gravity where it makes it very simple to start training your generative AI on your data because it's in one place. And the more that you can bring that together, the better tuned your generative AI will be related to your specific business. And that includes all of your real-time data, sales data, operations data, product data, marketing data, et cetera. Think about every aspect of your business. You really want to bring those elements together into a place where you can actually create this data gravity, because then as think about the acquisition worlds that we live in. As you bolt on other companies to your organization, you really already have a gravity well that pull those applications in, pull data in, et cetera. And finally, thinking about what then having your generative AI tools overlaid within your data well, you end up with mechanisms within which to apply that, right? And so when we think about this, we've been thinking a lot about how do we make this practical, and how do we create specific solutions for users that save time, allow them to put more time out in the field selling, or more time actually operationalizing work that we're doing for our customers. And it's in part about solving the blank page problem. So we think about opening up a new email, getting ready to write something out to a customer, getting ready to put together a new product brief, et cetera. Like there's this space, this dead space that we all exist when we open up the white space of a Word document or a PowerPoint document, and we have to think about what do we want to say, because the first word is always the hardest. this gives us a real opportunity to bring AI into those conversations or into those processes where we can summarize meeting notes into a task list or draft an email that introduces new product materials for customers or take actions like closing projects to prepare for invoicing. There's just really interesting things we can do. And as our team has been focused on the implementation side of this, we've really focused on how do we create practical solutions that drive real and meaningful time savings for our users so they can spend more time selling and more time operating. And I think with that, I'm going to hand it to John. Who will be coming on screen any moment.
Excellent. Hopefully everybody can hear me now and I'm sharing my screen.
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right, excellent. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jared. Those are some tough acts to follow. Again, thank you, everybody, for joining our session today. My name is John Rasky, and I am the Global Director of Innovation here at Argano. So, as you just heard, AI can help your organization personalize the customer experience, be more productive, and enhance performance based on your data. As you saw today, the Microsoft Copilot Studio is a role-based AI copilot designed for organizations to help them automate everyday tasks and unlock creativity. I'm going to walk you through some of our guiding principles and best practice scenarios on how you can be more confident deploying your AI solution to enhance those business performance outcomes. Back in, was it 2021, Gartner predicted that by the year 2025, the percentage of the world's data will be produced by generative AI. That was a bold prediction, but that's already been accomplished in the early parts of this year alone. As we start to look at the new capabilities announced by OpenAI, it will quickly become apparent that this new form of AI will have huge implications across many industries. Making the most of AI requires more than just turning on the tools. It's essential to choose the right capabilities, train our people to use them, and ensure data privacy and security. We're going to help you make the most of this emerging game changer with insights around how next generation AI can enable us to get to those next level successes, choosing that right AI-powered solution, and improve our focus and productivity. How do we personalize our customer engagements? And how do we train our teams, for that AI adoption? And finally, just ending on ensuring the responsibilities of use of this AI. When looking at this, we look at this and say 60% of people say they don't have enough uninterrupted focus time during their workday as organizations expect their teams to increase efficiencies and create more personalized customer connections. Without the right tools, these goals clash. As sellers load up on leads, they spend more time writing emails and juggling data and less time engaging with promising prospects. What's missing is a way to make sense of this data and turn it into their advantage. AI can empower users to instantly surface the most critical data, generate new and original content, and automate tasks. It also enables leaders to discover which sales efforts work and why, and gives them insights into inform about strategic decisions. In an era of hybrid, flexible work, productivity has been completely redefined. Once focused on grinding time to the clock from 9 to 5, employees want a new set of business and productivity tools that empower them to do what they do best their way. In fact, the organizations we deployed AI at saying that automating tasks allows them to work seamlessly across these teams. And we saw a huge increase of automation within those tools they use to collaborate that help teams work more effectively with one another by focusing time on work that really matters. The number of general purpose and sales specific AI tools available on the market has grown significantly, providing many options. The best way to choose the right one for your business is to match critical use cases and pain points with the capabilities of a given platform. Asked to imagine work in 2023, people said they'd place the most value on changes that save them time and enabling them to produce high quality work. More specifically, 85% want digital tools that help them to be more agile, automate daily tasks, and make information more accessible. And as well as we have seen this, so very increasingly over the past year, we've seen 9 out of 10 projects are opting to deploy an AI solution within their organization. Employees, feel their time is sacred and valuable. There's a limit to how much effort they will invest in learning new tools if the old way seems, well, good enough. The best AI experiences feel, immediately transformative to employees. They can make something that was painful and annoying easy, even fun. People don't want to save time, so they can just do more busy work. They want to use their skills and knowledge in meaningful ways. AI should help them focus and engage so that they can do their best work. AI should feel like a co-pilot, not a robot overlord. Keeping people at the center is essential to adoption, results, and ethical usage. Humans should always have the final say about any content or action the tools generate. Your journey to empowering your organization with AI is unique. Knowing what it can do and how it matches your team's needs can help you choose the right tools. You don't have to be a data scientist to use next generation AI, but understanding how it works and what's behind a given solution can help you understand, the approach you need to take. Asking your team, find the top pain points in typical work days through conversations or surveys. Try it out for yourself. Look for a free trial or a guided demo to see how the tools can work. Get opinions from leaders. Put a team together to pilot AI-based tools in real-world situations. Your resources face many demands on their time, not all of them equally productive for closing deals. With AI, they can get routine tasks done in less time. So how does that calculate into the business world? Well, that means that there's actually spending 1/3 of their time selling, to the other 2/3 administrative tasks. Organizations we deployed AI saw the amount of time selling increase in over 10% in just 30 days after go live. Let's take a look at some of those examples of current scenarios and how AI can help improve the process. Here are 2 examples of areas that we've seen organizations, spending large amount of time, creating emails and prepping and recapping in meetings. Let's look at the current AI-enabled processes, starting with emails. In the current process, the user drafts the email from scratch or based upon a template, personalizing them for each customer by manually inputting relevant information. That's kind of transformed more into the AI-enabled process now, which allows the user to use natural language prompts to rapidly generate personalized email content that automatically incorporates details based upon either their CRM, ERP, solutions and past interactions. The user can then refine the message further as needed. So some of our best practice we've implemented in our projects to increase adoption were to maintain a balance between automation and personalization, and ultimately monitor for any potential biases or incorrect information in the content. Next, we have some of our meetings. In the current process, users take notes during meetings and then manually write meeting summaries, often after hours. Looking at the AI-enabled process, this allows our users, to use the AI tools to automatically transcribe and summarize those meetings, extracting key points and follow-up actions. Again, using some of our best practices that we've seen in our other projects where we increase adoption, or around our ability to evaluate the accuracy and reliability of all the transcription services, ensure sensitive information is being handled securely, and provide training to teams on effectively using those recaps. Customers increasingly expect personalized interactions, fast answers to questions, and a seamless cross-channel experience. Organizations using next generation have the advantage. We're seeing that nearly 65% of customers want organizations to respond faster to their needs. Organizations we have deployed AI at were able to quickly incorporate this relevant data into their interactions and gain valuable insights when and where needed. We saw this increase customer satisfaction by 35% by increasing first call resolutions while decreasing the average handle time by 20%. And according to McKinsey research, AI, when effectively deployed, can deliver up to 45% productivity improvement in that customer engagement. Here are some examples on how AI is increasing the customer engagement personalizations. First one, staying informed. Our teams can get summaries of the latest interactions, news, and relevant information specific to a customer without having to go to multiple sources. Sharing relevant content. Now we can actually share even more, basic relevant content and basic, content over, engagements using AI-driven, by using recommendations and next steps. Following up, using AI, all these teams can get, key points, competitor mentions, and follow-up actions from emails and calls to promptly address issues and opportunities. While the best AI tools are easy to adopt, training ensures a smooth transition. It minimizes resistance and misunderstandings that could really hinder a successful implementation and integration. It also opens our eyes to the breadth of ways they can take advantage of these new capabilities, leading into better results and greater ROI. Training starts with a better understanding of how AI works. Simply put, AI is here to help you, not replace you. So we begin with the basics. When people understand what AI is and what it isn't, they can use it more effectively. Here are just a few, high-level points that we use in a lot of our workshops and trainings when we deploy AI. People are interacting with AI using natural language, which makes it easy to use, so we don't need special training or very specific prompts to do it. It's good at handling lots of information. We can take vast amount of information of data and make sense of it. This might mean understanding of customer habits or spotting some other patterns. AI can also create, great content based on what it has learned from data and human input. It can help write emails or create pitches based upon what it's been taught. It works best when humans are involved, adding their knowledge, perspective, and judgment that machines can't duplicate. Also, as users guide the AI, it gets better at helping them over time. AI relies on data, very specifically your data. So it's critical to ensure the technology is designed to be trustworthy and highly secure. To help you evaluate an AI solution, here are some questions you may want to ask. Let's start with fairness. The system should avoid bias and treat all individuals and groups, equally. It should not favor certain groups over others or discriminate based upon characteristics such as race, gender, age, or economic status. The AI should be dependable and operate safely under all conditions. It should consistently perform as expected and have safeguards to prevent or mitigate harm. For your privacy and security, they should protect user data and respect privacy. This includes storage of your data, encryption, and compliance with relevant data protection laws. The AI should be designed to be accessible and valuable to as many people as possible, regardless of their abilities or background. It should not exclude or marginalize any groups. For transparency, it's really how the system works and makes decisions should be clear. Users should be able to understand and where necessary, challenge the system's outputs. Finally, accountability. There should be mechanisms to hold the creators and operators accountable for their performance and impacts that they make. In summary, Copilot Studio empowers you to create powerful connected copilots that suit your unique requirements, enhancing collaboration and productivity within your organization. Here are a few points that we have discussed and presented to our customers that help them make their AI tool decision on. First one, customization and flexibility. The Copilot Studio allows you to create and customize copilots using natural language or graphical interface. Whether for internal or external scenarios, You can design, test, and publish copilots tailored to your specific needs across various industries, departments, or roles. Seamless integration. Simply the creation of customized copilot solutions. By seamlessly integrating them into applications, you can develop AI plugins for specific business scenarios and workflows, as well as conversational models using Azure OpenAI Service and generative AI. Using that low code and pro code approach, Copilot Studio enables a drag and drop low code approach to build and publish plugins directly to Copilot from Microsoft 365. This streamlines the process for extending Copilot's capabilities to align with specific enterprise scenarios. And finally, that end-to-end lifecycle management capabilities. We expose a full end-to-end lifecycle for customizations and standalone copilots within a single pane of glass. You can build, deploy, analyze, and manage everything from within the same web service. Since it's a software as a service solution, any changes you make are live instantly. So I wanted to kind of follow up on here on this last couple different pieces here. Wanted to bring to your attention the following Argano webinars. We've got another one coming up on March 21st on unleashing the power of generative AI. You can use that QR code to quickly register there on the right-hand side. And we also have our Copilot Studios Microsoft App Source offering that allows you to contact us if you're interested in more into building out a POC, which we actually have a full agenda for getting your teams involved, governance, security, building out workshop, and finally that POC to kind of build out a lot of the things that we've been talking about here in different scenarios. So we've got to contact that one. If you scan that code on the left-hand side there, we'll have all the information that you need there to contact us. I will now transition the presentation over Chloe for questions, and I want to thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. That was a really good way to end the presentation. And we do have several questions here. So we're going to get through as many as we can. There is still time to put questions into the Q&A box if you have any for the team. But everyone should be joining back now so that we can go through some questions. So I want to start with one from Melissa. Greg, I know that you answered this one privately, but I think that it would really benefit the audience if everyone could hear it. So Melissa asked, what do I need to consider for confidentiality of data? So for instance, client data or things that can't be shared outside of my company or even need to be restricted within my company.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's one of the #1 questions that we're getting asked about. It's all about confidentiality and things of that nature. We have customer data and customer confidential data all the time, and we need to treat it as such. I think starting with understood data sets that are properly indexed with hierarchies and associations, staying away from PHI, PII, those types of things, as you continue to evolve your governance is going to be critical. It's something that you need to start off in a phased approach, and having that defined governance program and model, I think, will help mitigate that risk from that standpoint. Also, as you listen to what Sarah and Jared and John are saying, is that they're talking a lot about use cases, right? Use cases help you understand the dependencies of risk, the dependencies of confidentiality, the dependencies of, is this something that can be automated in a certain way as well? I would definitely use those to get organizationally aligned, help ensure that the team understands the possibilities and capabilities of AI. And I think if you start with those principles, then you'll be in a good shape. And as John was mentioning earlier, we do have workshops that help you determine how to mitigate those risks, how to put those governance parameters in play as well. But I tell you what, Jared, I'm going to throw you a curveball. Given that you live in data, right? Dynata is very conscious of confidentiality and things like that. I'd love to get your perspective as well on that question.
Well, I really like the concept Sarah was describing of building individual co-pilots that are custom for specific use cases, because you do have different data that you want to play with. You've got finance data that needs to belong in finance, but you still want to actually shortcut some of the things that your finance team is doing. So having a sandbox co-pilot for that group that keeps that data in a safe environment is one of the techniques that we're focused on, right? To keep those components, that data in a silo, so that you don't have to worry about the compression of that going out. One of the big concerns we had as we started down this path was how do we protect our business from tuning other models for other people with our data? We generate a lot of data. We don't want our data out there being subsumed by large language models and tuning and creating outcomes and circumstances and the best answers for others from our data set. So it's really about sandboxing and isolating.
Perfect.
Thank you. That was a really good answer. And we do have some more questions, guys. They're coming in thick and fast, so I'm going to move on to the next one. So an anonymous attendee asked, how do we measure if generative AI has given the return on investment or the value that's expected? Do we use contact centers as an example?
John, over to you.
I'll definitely use that one as a perfect example. These are some real life numbers. I mean, we've been using now and deploying the contact centers with a lot of the co-pilot capabilities. And what we're seeing right now is a huge increase in not only that first time first time resolution calls, just getting that information. So what does that really mean? We're able to kind of like embed the system with knowledge-based articles, your data that you're looking at. So what does that do? It levels the playing field across all your customer service reps. You may have a customer service rep that may have just started. You probably spent either between 6 to 8 weeks or more just getting them ramped up and going through a lot of the training, understanding your products, understanding your processes. We're able to take those exactly the same training material, upload them to the co-pilot so it learns all these different processes. So when that same employee has difficulties and can't remember everything, that first the first couple months, the co-pilot's there to help them and walk them through all the, whether it be product information, process information, and then finally the steps. So we're really kind of bridging that gap. And what that does, again, levels the playing field from your most seasoned, customer service agent to ones that have just started. They're starting with all the information available at their fingertips.
Yeah, Sarah, I'd love to get your point of view on this. Obviously, you're out talking about ROI, living in call centers all day. I know this is your passion. So what say you, Sarah?
I think it's, and I kind of want to also try to pivot away from just contact centers too, right? So I think, I don't know, can you still see my video? I don't know why it's lost video, but let me just try and restart that. But the thing that is important to, and this is kind of, and I think John mentioned this, right, in the fact that we talk about ROI, we talk about value, we talk about impact, but many people actually look at these after the fact, like when they're looking to justify something because they've just done something. And that conversation needs to happen like way earlier. And Jared covered this too, right, of how you can do that. So the truth is, like, the ROI question, the value question actually shouldn't be that difficult. If you ask yourself sometimes the difficult questions kind of early on, to be like, well, what are we trying to achieve? What's the North Star that Jared was talking about? And then I think that you will then be able to understand, and whether you need to get to the quantification type, depending on what value you want out of it, that's the true action there. It shouldn't be such a difficult it's only difficult when it's left till the end. So that's my perspective on it. Like, the contact center piece is a bit more defined because as John kind of said, you're always looking at trying to drive down kind of common metrics, right? Like call time through deflection and things like that as well. But contact center isn't the only use case, right? Especially some of the email pieces that John shared. And I kind of liked how John really kind of showed this is the process pre and this is the process with AI. sometimes the gains can be kind of harder to quantify. So you also need to kind of tackle that, and how are you redefining the quantification of such a thing like writing emails? So
Yeah.
I hope that's my perspective on that.
Yeah, no, great perspective. Jared, I'm going to pass this over to you. I mean, you look at what you're able to do to get Dynata organizationally aligned around sales, project operations, customer experience use cases. I would imagine ROI was a significant conversation that you had to have internally to move the program forward. Can you maybe talk about some best practices, tips, and tricks around that North Star?
Like I think we covered it earlier, but just to reiterate that point, it's like when you engage in something large where you're going to invest meaningful amounts of capital, either in human capital or in terms of like just capital expenditure, like you've got to have a reason for doing it. And really businesses exist primarily to do two things, or well, to do one thing. It's to like generate EBITDA. And the ways that you generate EBITDA is to like unlock new revenue streams, new markets, et cetera, or to reduce costs by being more efficient at delivering the revenue that you're servicing. So it's really focusing the conversation up front with the business stakeholders. In this case, it'd be the senior leadership within the business, including the investors and the board, right? I mean, this is not a decision that's taken on lightly. I mean, these things, like you can have individual benefit from AI. That's easy to get to, right? Like I could change my process tomorrow with the right generative AI tools. But to change a business is just much harder. And again, it's not just cash, right? It's cash and it's attention and focus and time and effort. And you don't get those without bringing that team together and really focusing on that. Like Sarah's comments are spot on when it comes to like defining those things up front, because it's very easy to demonstrate whether or not you have generated new revenue or you have reduced your operating cost. Like those are two things that are fundamentally easy to measure, but you've got to be able to tie that's your intention with this effort, rather than, well, I just want to make my life easier. Like it's really hard to measure easy. It's really easy to measure impact.
Yeah, great point. Chloe, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. And thanks everyone for those answers. That was really good to hear everyone's kind of unique perspective on that. So we do have another question. This one's from Melissa again. So thank you, Melissa. And the question is, what functions or roles need to exist to support AI applications or platforms? For example, today for a contact center platform, you've got an administrator who manages the day-to-day changes and prioritizes the process for change. And it's similar for knowledge management, but how does it look for AI?
Good. Sarah, you want to answer that one and pass it over to John?
I knew you was going to throw it my way, and then we'll totally tag John in there. So Melissa, great question actually, and you kind of heard me talk a little bit about Copilot Studio and how the idea is that we want to make this accessible and available to many people, right? It's not just a developer tool. And so with that in mind, we really try to kind of apply these tools and give organizations the access to be able to take control of the tools. So whether or not you have like an implementing partner, the organization that uses these tools typically would have somebody who manages those tools in any way, like regardless of if it's an AI application or not. But they do need to have at least some obviously knowledge of the product. So in the case of Copilot Studio, the person would be essentially the owner of the bot or the copilot that gets generated or created from that tool. So they would be expected to know the application just like they would with any other application. It just extends to, in some cases, AI, right? And the realms of AI. So there is some knowledge that would be expected there, just like I said, any other tool. So that's my take on that. And I think that I think it's a great question because it's a very pragmatic one in terms of like readiness, because you need to be able to plan essentially the people that will need to take over from the initial implementation. The other piece as well is you kind of heard me talk about kind of the life cycle, kind of like the review piece. So another kind of role that may be different from kind of the owner of the product is somebody who kind of manages the analytics, that looks at the data in terms of, well, what kind of questions are being asked. And that's kind of important to be able to kind of then kind of create that feedback loop to kind of say, well, how can we take this to V2, V3? How can we continue to meet our customers' needs? and report back to the organization. So I hope that answers your questions. But I'll tag John in to kind of add anything he wants to add.
Yeah, let me quickly pile on top of that one, Sarah. Yeah, that was fantastic. And I think really to kind of add to that is we've seen generative AI and really natural language processing completely, change the game over the past, I don't know what, Sarah, over the past just very short couple of years. And what I'm talking about there is in the past, I mean, to answer this, it took a fairly sizable team to create kind of like an FAQ for, let's say, your chatbots. Where you had to have triggers and very specific words for it to kind of understand. I think this is what you mean when you said that. That's all out of the box. That's now replaced with natural language. So now we can kind of feed, our documents into this. It's going to read it, and based upon your natural language, you no longer have to have all these different triggers and all these other things. So that team, essentially from an administrative, perspective, has been condensed because of these natural language and generative AI processing capabilities, which allows us to get out to productions much quicker. So
I want to pile onto this question also a little bit, because you've got the administration piece, but then you've got the sponsors from within the different user groups. And as we're thinking about this, right, I've got my sales team, I've got my operations team, I've got my finance team, I've got my, insert every other team that I've got. You've got your users, right? And those users have to have some sort of sponsoring voice to articulate to you, like when you've got it right and when you've got it wrong. And it doesn't mean every user, it just means the voice of that user group needs to be represented in whatever governance structure you put together for administrating.
Awesome. Okay. So we have come up to time now. But again, thanks so much for that answer. It was really good to hear everyone's points of view. And thank you to everyone who sent questions in. It's great to have such a good discussion. Sorry that we couldn't get to all the questions, but any questions that were sent in that we didn't get to will be forwarded on to the speakers. And I would just like to say thank you so much to John, Greg, Jared, and Sarah. I've really enjoyed the webinar. I hope you guys have enjoyed it too. And thanks very much to everyone who tuned in today. Looking forward to seeing you guys next time in March.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.